Hi, I'd like to tell you about a very special concert that we're having on Friday, April 29th, and I'd like to tell you why we're having this concert. Okay, so many of you probably know about the sloop Clearwater, which is the boat that Pete Seeger and a bunch of his friends started way back at the end of the 1960s, and he had the idea to recreate a traditional Hudson River sloop that would go up and down the river, spreading environmental education and inspiring people to become activists and clean up the river. And so this project was like really successful, and 40 years plus, the Clearwater has been going up and down the river, bringing environmental education to communities all along the riverfront and inspiring people to work on cleaning up the Hudson River and the environment around them. The Hudson's now a lot cleaner than it had been, but it's still not where it needs to be. There's still more PCBs that we need General Electric to get out of the river. But Clearwater has been working on many other environmental issues too. They've taken a very strong active role in trying to shut down Indian Point. And the sloop Clearwater has become really an iconic presence on the river, just as iconic as Pete Seeger is legendary. Okay, but what's happened is, you know, just as people start to get older, boat gets older, you know, things sometimes need to be replaced. And now the Coast Guard has mandated that some very major restorations be done on the sloop in order to keep her seaworthy. Okay, and so those are going on right now, and the boat should be back on the water this summer, okay, but it's costing $850,000. That's a lot of money, okay? That's almost $1 million. So there's been a lot of fundraising, but it's a major financial challenge. And because of this, it was not possible to go forward with the Hudson River Revival this year. And that's a tremendous loss, not only for all of us who love folk music and other kinds of music, but for all of us who, as activists, like to come to share in an activist community and have an outreach opportunity where we can talk to people about all these environmental issues. Okay, so what was decided was that instead of having the revival, this year there is a whole series of concerts being held up and down the river, fundraiser concerts being held by Clearwater and by its many supporters, okay, to give people the opportunity to come together in community around music and to do fundraising so that we can float the boat, have the sloop back on the water, and have the Hudson River Revival next year. Okay, so New York City Friends of Clearwater is having a major fundraiser concert on Friday the 29th of April, partnering with the New York Society for Ethical Culture. Okay, they're working with us on this, and the concert is going to be at the New York Society for Ethical Culture, which is located at 2 West 64th Street in Manhattan. So the doors open 6:30 and the concert starts at 7, and we've got a really great lineup of performers. Let me tell you who we've got. We've got Bev Grant, we've got the Peace Poets, we've got the Ebony Hillbillies, we've got Bethany Yarrow and Rufus, we've got Judy Gorman, we've got the Chapin Sisters, and we've got Kim and Reggie Harris. Okay, so it's going to be a really great evening, and we've also got a silent auction going on with it and a few other things, and the tickets start at only $20 for general admission. Okay, for $60 you can get an even better seat, and for $100 you can get the best seats and a meet and greet with the performers and the satisfaction of knowing that you're really doing a lot to, you know, help support Clearwater. Okay, but all of us can support Clearwater. Come to this concert, buy your tickets, buy a few more tickets for friends, right? Okay, you can buy the tickets online, or you can buy tickets by sending a check to New York City Friends of Clearwater. And there's just one more thing I want to tell you about. We're going to have a program booklet, you know, a nice little booklet for the concert. And for a very limited time, you have the opportunity, if you would like to have an ad or just some simple greetings in that program booklet. Okay, so here's the email address that you should contact if you're interested in having your ad or your greetings appear in the program booklet. Okay, but the tickets, you can buy them online, you can buy them by check. If there's any left at the door, we'll sell them to you at the door. But the main thing is to be there. It's going to be a great evening for Clearwater. Thanks a lot.
I'm Marilyn, Elie. Welcome to my home. I have talked about and presented information about Indian Point for a long time. Recently, I was at the Grassroots Alliance. It's a really great group of activists in New York City, and they asked some very interesting questions. So I'd like to share those questions and the answers with you today. The first question that someone said to me was, is it safe to kayak and swim in the Hudson River? And you've seen a lot in the news lately about tritiated water and radioactive isotopes going into the river. So how safe is the river? Well, it's a very big river, and it is a small amount of liquid that's going into it. However, you have to understand too that radioactive isotopes don't dissolve like sugar dissolves in water. They maintain their integrity. So you have these little radioactive isotopes of tritium and other radioactive isotopes as well in the river. It's there. So yes, it's probably safe. I would not, if I had young children, I would not have them swimming at Croton Point Park. But people make their decisions, and particularly if you're out in the middle of the river where it's very deep and far from shore, where these substances are leaching into the river, you're probably fine. And the difficulty with that answer is that you never know, because if you do ingest or inhale a radioactive isotope, that's where the problem is. It lodges in tissue, it lodges in bone, depending on what kind of isotope it is, and it's just there emitting radiation as a free radical, and it creates free radicals in your body, and over a period of time it is carcinogenic. That's just the way it works. So enjoy the river. The river's beautiful. I love going down to the river. But just know that we need to work to stop what's going into it that's so harmful to the environment and to people, and also to the whole river ecosystem. So qualified yes would be my answer to that question, and let's work to stop the tritiated water and other radioactive isotopes that are longer lived from going into the water. The next question that came up was how much radiation and radioactive isotopes are actually being released into the Hudson River. You have to understand that there are regular and routine releases from Indian Point all the time. It happens on a regular and a routine basis. They have permits for that. They can release 1,300 curies of radiation annually, and that's a lot of radiation. It goes into the water and it goes into the air. They have a discharge canal that they use when they need to discharge liquid effluent, and they have other ways that they can discharge what they call the noble gases. Some of these isotopes are very short-lived, others are not, and they're all increasing our background radiation. Now, when there is an unexpected release, like what's happening or what happens on a regular and routine basis with tritiated water showing up in the monitoring wells for refueling, then it makes the newspapers and people get all upset. They talk about 1,200 picocuries. Now that's a very small, tiny bit of a whole curie. Remember, they have 1,300 curies that they can release. So if you're talking about picocuries, it's a very, very small amount. And people in the industry will tell you, well, you know, it's below regulatory concern. Why are you making such a fuss about it? But it spikes, and people get very uncomfortable with that and very nervous about it, and rightly so. I would like to have air and water in the Hudson River with no unexpected or even planned releases of radiation. That's why we need to close that plant down. We need to stop doing things that are so harmful to people, to the environment, and to our energy future. We don't need that plant. We don't need the electricity it produces. It's already been replaced, and I'll talk about that some more later, about how it's been replaced. But it's old, it's dangerous, and it's unnecessary. Let's close it down. Another question that came up is there a danger of cancer for those who live near Indian Point? And the answer to that is unknown. We have a lot of anecdotal evidence, but there's never been an epidemiological study done that would really answer that question specifically. And one of the reasons is there's been a lot of pressure from Entergy, the owner of Indian Point, not to do it. So we're left with this hanging question, and we're left with people who say, there's so many families I know of that have had problems with thyroid cancer. There are pediatricians who talk about, around in this area, who talk about thyroid cancer in children, which is not common at all. So it's a very uncomfortable situation, and I'm no medical expert, so I can't really talk about that. However, there are people who have studied that and who have collected data. Joe Mangano of the Radiation and Public Health Project is one of those people. You can find him online. You can Google his name, M-A-N-G-O, Mangano, or you can look up Radiation and Public Health Project. He did not too long ago something called the Tooth Fairy Project, and collected baby teeth, the teeth, those first teeth that fall out, from children, and had them analyzed. And he found that, yes, children that had grown up in this area had a higher level of radiation in those baby teeth, especially something like strontium, which in the body acts like calcium and goes to the bones and goes to the teeth. So is there a cancer risk living near Indian Point? Helen Caldecott has said she would not eat vegetables grown in gardens within a 10-mile radius of the plant. That would be a very safe bet. However, I do have my vegetable garden, and I only live 3 miles from the plant. So you get comfortable with things, and sometimes they're not right, and they're not the way they should be. So what I'm saying now is, there are many people who are way too comfortable with Indian Point. It's a danger to us. It's something we need to close down, and all of our risks would be much, much less, and we'd all be healthier.
We, the Stony Point Convergence and the Indian Point Safe Energy Coalition, are hosting an open space conference on the weekend of Friday, April 29th through Sunday, May the 1st. It's 3 days after the 30th anniversary of Chernobyl on April 26th. And we are going to be talking about how to end nuclear power. We will set the agenda when we get there. We'll see who's in the room, who knows about what, who's got ideas to work on to communicate our message to the outside world. We start about 5:30 on Friday, have dinner, and keep working and eating and having a good old time through Sunday about 1 o'clock. We end up after Sunday lunch. We have our traditional first Sunday convergence for a couple of hours after that to debrief, and then it's on to more activism. It's a wonderful, lovely campus, 30 miles from New York City, organic food from the garden, simple but lovely accommodation. You can stay over, or you can do a commuter day rate. Come for the day and go home at night. Sleep in your own bed. Bring your musical instruments. Bring artistic stuff. We can get some posters made. That's it, I think.
Thank you. This is happening in a larger legal context. The Spectra people are in court. Our Indian Point heroes have decided that they are guilty and proud of it. They're proud of what they're doing, and they very well may do it again because they're doing it for the health and safety of us all. We have now our lawyer. His name is Marty Stolar. And Marty, you want to come down? Stolar. Thank you. Come down and give us a little bit of an overview.
Well, I'm here this afternoon to represent 11 very brave people who took it upon themselves.
This is the mic you want to use. Who
took it upon themselves to stand up and bring to the public's attention that the license for operating the second reactor at Indian Point had expired. That means that Indian Point is now operating with 2 expired reactors. They are not licensed. If any one of us decided to drive an automobile without a license, we'd get locked up. Instead, Indian Point is allowed to continue to operate, and it's the 11 brave people who took it upon themselves to bring that to everybody's attention to try to shut down Indian Point and preserve the safety and health of all of us. Their intention today, having been charged with disorderly conduct, is to plead guilty, and to proudly plead guilty for standing up and taking on the responsibility of being responsible citizens and bringing this to the world's attention, that Indian Point needs to be shut down. They will plead guilty, they will be given a slap on the wrist of time served, and they will go on to continue the fight to shut down the plant, the dangerous plant at Indian Point.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty. We have plenty of organizations that are supporting us, but unfortunately they could not be here, so we have people reading statements of support from them. And now Jackie's going to talk about Sierra Club. They have an anti-nuclear task force. They're very opposed to nuclear power. They could not be here today, so Jackie, take it away.
Hello, I'm here today to read a statement from Bill Meyer, who's the chairman of the Sierra Club Lower Hudson Group, which is a very large organization. Sierra Club has opposed the Indian Point nuclear power plant since before it was constructed. Our policy is that Indian Point should close down immediately. We thank these protesters for bringing attention to the dangers of the continued operation of Indian Point and the courageous siting of a massive gas pipeline within blast distance of its aging, overcrowded spent fuel pools. There has been a long history of arrests at this plant of citizens concerned about the lives of those who live along the Hudson River, where 20 million people live within a 50-mile radius of the plant. It's time to close Indian Point down now and stop the construction of this massive, poorly thought-out pipeline. We've seen a long string of incidents at this plant that have become more frequent and more alarming. Indian Point had 7 major malfunctions in 2015 and has already had to close twice this year. Add to this danger the 42-inch diameter AIM natural gas pipeline being built 100 feet from critical structures at Indian Point, and the risk is multiplied. Indian Point is dangerous and should not be operating. Let's shut it down. There is no need for replacement power for this aging plant. The Public Service Commission has said that enough power already exists in the system to close it down. Indian Point could shut down today, and it would not adversely affect power reliability in the region. New natural gas-fired power plants are being built in the region that are speculative and also are not needed. The Sierra Club is working toward a renewable energy revolution. New York State is growing a percentage of renewables in its portfolio. Natural gas is a fossil fuel and no solution. It is not clean, and burning it only adds to the devastating effects of climate disruption. New York State is poised to become a global leader on the energy front with a goal of running on 80% renewable energy by 2050. That's a good start, but Sierra Club knows we can do better. New York State will set an example for the rest of the country.
And indeed it is.
We hope that someday, with your help, that we achieve our goal of creating a worldwide environmental communications network with at least one of our divisions broadcasting, streaming, or whatever the method will then be called, to you, thereby giving you the choice of viewing it at your location and at your leisure, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, just like the cable and other television stations you are receiving now. Until then, This is the Environment TV Weekly News.
I saw a great big tourist bus of folks from out of town. For 40 days and 40 nights, they covered miles of ground. They had a map and compass, but they still were not arriving. Oh, they couldn't get to Pleasantville, so they kept on driving. And then one day the sirens blew, the county was aghast. It seems the aging nuke plant had an accident at last. The stockholders who fainted couldn't be reached for reviving. And they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The highways turned to parking lots from Albany to Queens. The politicians learned just what evacuation means. They frantically assembled all their staff for some contriving. But they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. They knew the Hudson River was contaminated now. The radiation off the charts of what they could allow. They cursed the leaky nuke plants and its owners for their jiving. But they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The drivers of the buses went to pick up their own kids. School nurses giving KI were about to flip their lids. And somewhere in the distance there were terrorists high-fiving. But they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The parents were hysterical and tried to storm the schools. They didn't give a damn about evacuation rules. The plan went out the window, folks just cared about surviving. And they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. They thought of Fukushima and the folks who had to flee. The 50-mile radius set by the NRC. Our own 10-mile escape plan is a relic worth archiving. 40 years of population growth guarantees no driving. Piling up on the Taconic, that big tour bus joined the rest. While the radio announcers cried out, "This is not